The Eurofighter Typhoon, one of the most advanced jets in War Thunder, combining speed, agility, and heavy firepower. But jets like this just don't appear overnight. The Typhoon has a long backstory, a project born out of the Cold War, shaped by international cooperation and designed to give Europe an edge in the skies. So let's have a look at this thing's history. It's the 1970s. Europe's air forces were flying aging jets like the F-4 Phantom and Jaguar, many of which dated back to the 1960s. NATO needed a cutting-edge, multi-role fighter to replace these Cold War relics. In Britain, work on a Jaguar replacement began as early as 1971, leading to studies for an agile, supersonic air superiority fighter. Meanwhile, Soviet advances like the MiG-29 and Su-27 showed the West that new, highly maneuverable fighters were on the horizon. The goal was a fourth-generation European jet with delta-wing canards and fly-by-wire that can match the best from the USSR and the US. By the late 1970s, Europe had a problem. The frontline jets in service, Phantoms, Jaguar, and early Tornadoes, were beginning to look tired, while over in the Soviet Union, aircraft like the MiG-29 and Su-27 were emerging with terrifying agility. If NATO didn't step up its game, a future conflict would be decisively in favour of the Soviets. Individually, European countries couldn't afford the astronomical costs of developing a brand new fourth-generation fighter, so in true "we're stronger together" fashion, Britain, Germany, and Italy, already teamed up on the Tornado program, invited Spain and France to join them. By 1983, these five nations officially launched the Future European Fighter Aircraft program. On paper, it was perfect. Pool resources, split the cost, share the workload. Everyone gets their shiny new jet, and Europe gets to stand on its own 2 feet instead of buying American F-16s. But cooperation in theory is easy. In practice, it's like 5 car companies trying to make one car. Every partner had their own wish list. Britain, Germany, and Italy wanted a fast, land-based air superiority fighter, something lean and aggressive. France, meanwhile, had an ace up its sleeve. It demanded the aircraft also be carrier capable for the French Navy. That meant major design compromises, heavier structure, reinforced landing gear, catapult hooks. To the other nations, this looked as France imposing their will on everyone else. Thus, talks dragged on, tempers flared. By 1984, the program was split into 2 camps, France versus everyone else. And then in true dramatic style, France decided it had enough, and by 1983 it walked away from the program altogether, deciding to go at it alone. The result was the Dassault Rafale, a jet born partially out of stubbornness and partly out of a genuine naval requirement. For the rest of Europe, France's departure was both a setback and a relief. On one hand, the whole project had to be reorganised. New contracts, new budgets, new work share agreements. On the other hand, the constant bickering was finally gone. The remaining 4, the UK, Germany, Italy and Spain, doubled down and created Eurofighter GmbH in 1986 to actually build the thing. Still, the French exit left scars. Splitting the workload fairly was a political nightmare. Each partner wanted jobs for its domestic aerospace industry. Britain's BAE Systems handled big chunks of the airframe, Germany's DASA took wings and avionics, Italy's Alenia grabbed fuselage sections, and Spain's CASA worked on the rear fuselage. Everyone got a slice of the pie, but it slowed everything down. With France gone and the paperwork finally signed, the 4 remaining European nations could get back to development. The first big step came in 1986 with Britain's experimental aircraft program. Think of it as a proof of concept car that never hits the road but shows off the design ideas. The EAP was a sleek, single-seat demonstrator with the now iconic delta wings and canards. When it flew in August 1986, it confirmed that this futuristic-looking setup wasn't just pretty, it worked. The EAP's agility and stability data fed directly in what would become the Eurofighter Typhoon. From there, the multinational consortium set about building a series of full-fat prototypes called development aircraft. These weren't just testbeds, they were the first proper Eurofighters, each one assembled in a partner country to spread the workload. On the 27th of March 1994, Germany's DA-1 took to the skies for the first official Eurofighter flight. Over the next few years, Italy, Spain and the UK rolled out their own DAs, each one helping refine the aircraft's fly-by-wire systems, avionics and engines. By the late 1990s, the prototypes had logged thousands of hours, proving that the jet could handle the high angles of attack and blistering roll rates promised on the drawing board. Initially, the aircraft carried the somewhat clunky title Eurofighter 2000, which made sense at the time. However, by 1998, someone wisely decided a cooler name was needed, and Typhoon was officially adopted. Just as prototypes were taking shape, history intervened. The Berlin Wall fell in 1989, and the Soviet Union collapsed 2 years later. Suddenly, the Eurofighter's entire reason for existing, outmaneuvering Soviet fighters over Central Europe, vanished almost overnight. Without a big red enemy across the Iron Curtain, politicians asked, why are we spending billions on this? Budgets shrank, orders were cut, and production numbers that once looked ambitious became wishful thinking. At one point, the original plan called for over 600 Tranche 1 aircraft. In reality, the numbers were trimmed back again and again. The program didn't die, but it slowed to a crawl. As governments bickered over costs and work shares, every delay meant more expense, and every expense sparked more arguments. It became a classic Cold War project that outlived the Cold War itself. Finally, after years of delays and budget battles, the Typhoon entered operational service in 2003, nearly 20 years after the EAP's first flight. The world it entered wasn't the one it was designed for. Instead of preparing to duel Soviet MiGs over Germany, the Typhoon would find itself enforcing no-fly zones, intercepting Russian bombers on the edge of NATO airspace, and later dropping precision bombs in the Middle East. The Eurofighter Typhoon, specifically the FGR-4 in War Thunder, is a high-performance British jet with top-tier air-to-air and strike capabilities. Let's have a look at what makes it dominate so effectively. Powering all this are two Eurojet EJ200 turbofans, each producing around 60 kilonewtons dry and over 90 with afterburner. Together, they can blast the Typhoon past Mach 2 and even let it supercruise. This high total thrust gives the Typhoon a very high thrust to weight ratio. It climbs extremely quickly, on the order of 315 meters a second in optimal conditions. It also carries large fuel tanks, roughly 30 minutes internally, and 15 minutes in optional external tanks. This gives it a plenty range in operational theatres. It can also carry extremely cursed looking conformal fuel tanks. However, this has only been shown on test demonstrators. The EJ200s were designed with room to grow. Engineers have already tested thrust vectoring nozzles, which basically means the engines can swivel mid-flight, letting the Typhoon pull moves that defy the laws of physics. However, from what I can find, these have never been put in an actual operational Typhoon. On the nose, you'll find the Captor M radar, a mechanically scanned pulse Doppler multi-mode radar. It offers standard modes like range while scan and track while scan to detect and track aircraft targets. The exact detection range depends on factors like altitude, target RCS, and countermeasures, but it's on the order of dozens of kilometers, with a maximum theoretical range of 185 kilometers. Think of it as similar to other top-tier jets with pulse Doppler radars. However, it is outclassed by ESA radars. The mechanically scanned Captor M has a fixed scan pattern, so it has very fast scan rates, like 330 degrees a second fast. This in theory can reduce range, so pilots should manage their scan cones and track limits. It performs best at higher altitudes with fewer ground clutter returns. But upgrades are rolling out, such as the much improved Captor E ASA radar. This gives pilots sharper tracking, longer ranges, and the ability to map ground targets while still scanning the skies. Unfortunately, the UK has recently cancelled its acquisition of these radars for its fleet. However, it has been fitted on export models, notably Qatar, but it's still up in the air for many other operators. Backing all that up is Pirate, the infrared search and track system. Instead of using a radar ping to find a target, Pirate passively looks for the heat signature of enemy jets, allowing for a useful backup system for the radar. Of course, what good is all that kit if someone puts a missile up your tailpipe? Enter the Praetorian Defensive Aid Subsystem, or more commonly known as DAS. This suite is constantly scanning for threats, radar locks, missile launches, even laser designators. When something nasty is inbound, DAS decides whether to jam it, fire off flares, spit chaff, or all of the above. It can juggle multiple threats at once, giving the pilot a fighting chance to escape. It can also carry a total of 320 physical countermeasures. The Typhoon can also carry a huge variety of weapons to back up its amazing airframe, such as an internal 27mm Mauser BK-27 revolving cannon, with about 150 rounds tucked inside. It's the old school dogfight insurance policy. Not exactly the most useful tool in the shed, but you'll definitely be happier having one in a pinch. But the real story is the Typhoon's 13 weapon stations, 8 under the wings, 5 under the fuselage. 8 of these can carry air-to-air weapons, which for long-range duels, Typhoon pilots rely on various models of the AIM-120 AMRAAM, the early of which is the AIM-120B. Solid range, decent tracking, but a bit easier to notch or spoof with chaff, and the improved version, the AIM-120C5, with a more compact design with shorter fins and better guidance and energy retention, giving you a longer effective range and a higher kill probability. In-game, both are fire and forget, letting you launch and immediately break away or crank. In theory, the AIM-120C5 should be a better missile, but in-game, the range difference is almost nothing, and the shorter fins means that it can't turn as much, meaning in a pinch, it would be far better to bring AIM-120Bs. This will be resolved in future updates with newer models such as the AIM-120C7, which will have a far better range. Newer models of the British Typhoon can also carry the AIM-120D, a longer range, data-linked AMRAAM with better kinematics, which would push BVR fights even further if added. Also, all Typhoons will get the MBDA Meteor. Its ramjet motor lets it sustain high speed and energy at extreme ranges, so it can chase down targets where other missiles would run out of juice. Both of these will feature ranges of 100+ kilometers. Closer in, the Typhoon carries short-range heat seekers, like various models of the AIM-9, such as the AIM-9L, the oldest missile on the Typhoon. It has an all-aspect seeker with good range, but very out-of-date compared to everything else. The AIM-9LI and AIM-9M both have the same seeker head, featuring IRCM that suspends the seeker when it spots flares. The only difference, practically, is the AIM-9M has a smokeless motor. In future, the Typhoons will get IRST, or the British ASRAAM. In practice, this would mean that if you get too close to these jets, you won't be able to dodge the incoming missile. Currently, you can take a maximum of 10 missiles, 6 AIM-9Ms and 4 AIM-120s. However, depending on your playstyle, having 2 more AIM-120s by sacrificing 4 AIM-9Ms may be worth it for you. In-game, all Typhoons carry the same air-to-ground loadout, which can carry £1,000 and £2,000 bombs for general bombing. It can also take precision-guided bombs like the Paveway 4 laser-guided bombs and GBU-54 LJDAMs, which have GPS and laser targeting. For example, some Typhoon loadouts include up to 10 Paveway 4s, 6 GBU-54s, or it's possible to bring 18 Brimstone missiles, which in-game is a laser-guided missile when it should be radar-guided. It can be used for precision anti-armor attacks. In future, these loadouts can be complemented with Storm Shadow or Scalp cruise missiles for deep strike missions, as well as the AGM-88 Harm to take out enemy radars, and the Spear 3 Smart Glide Bomb, giving the Typhoon precision strike capabilities from standoff ranges. Over water, the Typhoon can load up with Martyr ER anti-ship missiles, and in future the Joint Strike missile, turning it into a serious threat to service fleets. The result, a true swing roll fighter. One sortie, it's wiping the skies clear with AMRAAMs, and the next it's flattening ground targets with brimstones and paveways. And if anyone gets too close, that 27mm cannon is always ready to save you. The Typhoon finally entered service in 2003, and since then about 600 production jets have been built. It's operated not only by the 4 core partners, but also others via export. As of 2025, 9 countries fly Typhoons: UK, Germany, Italy, Spain, Austria, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Qatar. In combat, the Typhoon's record so far is modest but growing. Its combat debut came in 2011 when RAF and Italian jets struck Libyan targets and performed recon over Okan as part of NATO intervention. Later, Typhoons flew air policing missions over the Baltics and Black Sea, intercepting Russian bombers. From 2016 onwards, RAF Typhoons took on the anti-ISIS campaign over Iraq and Syria. They dropped Paveway 4 bombs and even used the cannon. Notably, in 2021, an RAF Typhoon scored its first air-to-air kill by shooting down a hostile drone with an ASRAAM missile. Beyond combat, Typhoons routinely perform quick reaction alert intercepts in Europe. In summary, the Eurofighter Typhoon is the product of decades of European effort, a high-agility canard delta jet that serves as a primary air defense fighter for its operators. It overcame Cold War budget crises and political splits to become a key NATO jet. In dogfight, it relies on its maneuverability. It will remain in service through the 2030s. The core partners plan to fly the Typhoons until the early 2040s, when they'll hand off to yet a new next-generation fighter. Until then, you can expect Typhoons to keep buzzing the skies on air patrols, exercises, and any real firefights that come along.